I want to share a roll. This is, let's see, made a little sheet. My camera, a Leica MP with a Leica 35mm Summicron M version 1, also known as the 8 element. I shot one roll of Kodak 5222, also called XX. I developed it in a Jobo 2-reel tank. Pre-soak in soft tap water at 80 degrees Fahrenheit for 45 seconds. 7 milliliters of Rodinal in 500 milliliters of water. 80 degrees, which is about a 1:75 ratio. 1 minute of aggressive agitation. Actually was shaking it so hard that I threw it on the ground. It survived though. And then 10 seconds of aggressive agitation at 2, 5, 8, 11 minutes. I dumped at 14 minutes. A water stop of 80 degrees, TF4 fixer 80 degrees, rinse, photo flow, hang in the shower diagonally, scanned with an SL2S and Sigma 70mm 2.8 macro, inverted and edited in Capture 121. Some of the idea here is looking for a lot of grain, playing up grain, but trying to do it in a way where I still have nice acutants. And, this is a pushed formula. Oh, I should say, I shot this. Shot at 800 exposure index. Right, and my general metering strategy is, right, I set 800 on the back, and I look for a mid-tone, but then I also ask, am I at any risk if I either expose it at an extra stop or decrease it 1, right? I say, oh, am I risking blowing out some highlights, or is it okay if I lift the shadows, or right? I kind of play around with a +1 or -1 in my mind and choose from there. This is the first time I've done this recipe, and let's look at them. All right. These are my boys. Got some sunlight, a little bit of backlighting, right? And this is f2. I was nervous about flare. I got some, but I actually like how it looks. It's definitely grain. It's actually not as much grain as I thought. The grain clumping is definitely there, but not crazy. I like the tones. Here I'm focused on my ant. About a 2.8. The scanning strategy is new. You can tell I could have, this is the frame. I haven't cropped these at all out of the camera. So I'm not nearly as close to the negative as I could be. I don't know, I kind of like the look. but it's helping me just really see all the way out to the edges. You know, double X is good at, it's not a fine detail film. It's not a high resolution film. So like some of these, right, I can't get in here and start to see the font. But I get nice sharp edges on things that are bigger, coarser, right, these outlines. This roll is me going back home for the first time in 5 years. So this is where I grew up, right there basically. Call that the guitar pond. This roll is very personal. I don't know how much the images will wow somebody who doesn't have the history with these places and things like I do and people. Yeah, really like this one. When I was a kid, there was a little bullfrog that lived inside this door. This is the well. And I would open it, and there'd be a big old bullfrog in there. And that's just where he liked to live. Either that or he was trapped in there and I never let him out. I think he was happy in there though. I played a lot of basketball on this court. This forest has changed. Used to be more trees and thinner trees. Now it's, yeah. I like what the film does though. It doesn't get me caught up in the tiny details. This is my basketball court. I remember when this crack started. I used it as sort of like to know I was shooting from the same place every time, but over time it got kind of big. That's my basketball goal. Took a lot of shots from right there. I like the background out of focus rendering of the lens. This is actually f2. Sometimes I don't shoot this lens with a lot of confidence at f2. But I mean, that's a good combination, plenty sharp. This is the spot where I took the most shots from this corner. Huh. I really like how this looks. I don't know if I got a branch here or if that's a something on my negative. Where's my house? My aunt lives there now. I was here to see her. I like this little door. We had chickens in there, bunnies. That's my uncle. This was Halloween. You know, basically just using indoor lighting there. I had to shoot f2 on his finger. That's a nice moment. My cousin hanging out in here in the shadow. Probably loading up his camera. My sister and I had a pumpkin carving contest. I think you can tell that she won. uh, I was maybe a little underexposed. You know, this is really just the kitchen lights right above her, so her face was totally in the shadow. Tried to focus on the pumpkin there. Yeah, really like the background too. My dad made the wood doors and my mom made these punch tins. My aunt put this walking cane there because she thought that was cool. And I agreed, so I took the picture. You know, where double X seems to really show its signature is in the like the shadows, the curves, the contrast, and the shadows seems to be where I always can just tell it's double X. In addition to like the type of sharpness, right? It's uh, again, it's not a high frequency sharpness. It's more of a like a middle frequency sharpness, right? These lines, these edges are really well defined, but maybe some of the really small textures are lost. There's my aunt. My Aunt Kay. She's fighting cancer. Having a nice moment there with my cousin's girlfriend. There's a little bit of window light coming in. It's hitting this sheet, this quilt or whatever, which is really beautiful. But for the most part, it's this one bright overhead light. That's my cousin. That's Kay's mom. Really a gorgeous photo. I love it. Not sure if that's f2 or 2.8. Here's a book called Way Beyond Monochrome that he's reading. He's interested in black and white photography too. My sister's house. My mom made that angel. I'm sort of impressed with my ability to hold the camera even, right? The way I took these, and I'm not cropping at all. I'm including my scanning frame. It means I couldn't adjust any of these in terms of tilt or anything. This one I might have underexposed a little bit. I kind of like that. My sister's living room. Yeah, like the way those pictures pop off the wall. Right, it's nice. It's pushed. Right, I pushed this. I was hoping to kind of do like a two-stop push. I think it ended up being like maybe a little more than one. It's the first time I'd used temperature instead of the amount of developer to try to get a push. There's a park where I'd planted a tree in my mom's name when she passed, and I was just on the court and kind of thought I like this giant tree back there and these 3 basketball goals. That's the house I grew up in. Paint paint color's a little different now, but not much else has changed. My cousin there on the very edge. I have more shadow detail than I thought I was going to. It's also from that 3 minutes of, right, my agitations were 3 minutes apart. So I get a little more compensation, right? The places with a lot of density, the developer, it's a dilute developer that somewhere in those 3 minutes it kind of starts to stop acting. And then shadows where there's not a lot of density, there's still fresh developer in that area and can keep working. So it just kind of creates maybe a little lower contrast image, maybe a little more lift in the shadows, a little bit less runaway in the highlights if you weren't doing that. You know, again, this is really a 200 speed film that I'm shooting at around 800. Did I lose a detail up here in the? Yeah, I mean there's some, but again, double X doesn't grab a lot of this fine detail anyways here on the roof. There's my cousin. We had some of those moments where he was taking a picture of me and I was trying to get a picture of him. Now this is just one where this is the edge of where my yard meets the farm. I spent a lot of time on that cattle guard one because I liked playing on the cattle guard. Wasn't as filled in when I was a kid. It was a little harder to walk across it. May have actually been a different cattle guard. But it's that there's that feeling of almost a wall being there of I was supposed to stay in the yard and to go across it is where the farm was where my dad was working, and just a strong sense of boundary to this spot. My dad's tractor. Couldn't decide if I wanted to include this, something I built. That's some good looking hay. Now, we used to do square bales, then we switched to round bales. This was a good year for hay. This is a good spot to maybe check out the accutants. Although it'd help if I had nailed focus. So I think I focused somewhere along here. Right, so the accutants you can tell on the highlight side, it's brightest right along the black edge. And then same with the blacks, the darkest values are right along the white edge. It's subtle, but it's there. So I am getting some accutants, but and Rodinal is considered moderate accutants. There's definitely higher accutants developers. But it's, I wanted to like if double X right is really sharp on kind of coarser medium frequency edges, right? Not this hay, but something more like these lines. I was interested in playing the accutants into that, combining them. And then in a way, like these kind of things like trees and hay bales, like both the film and the developer and technique all sort of, I mean there is some detail, but softer. It's textured, but not Yeah, it's not, you can't like zoom in and keep looking for more and more detail like digital. I like this one. I was actually going to shoot it without the cow, and then the cow came in. And I got it. I even kind of like that the cow's her eyes are hidden. Look at these coffee cans. Farmers, one, drink coffee, but then these cans, right? They were handy. You maybe kept nails or screws or whatever in a nice coffee can like that. But this one was by a collapsed barn where this was maybe some came out of the barn and hadn't been picked up yet. I like this is F2 again. Really like the way that there's some vignetting and softness. Yeah. When I took that, I wasn't sure. I almost didn't take it. I would say about a third of the time I put my camera up to my eye to take a picture, I don't take it. Right? I try to be judicious. And this one almost didn't get to make the cut, but I'm glad it did. This is where I used to work cows. You needed a big, heavy chain like that. Sometimes you might have wood or boards that were starting to break, or a gate you really just needed to keep closed. And those big cows or bulls push, push, right? And so it's nice to have a big chain like that. I like the way the fence lines back here look. Working cows. This was not my favorite part. I mean, it's sort of my favorite because this is where you knew you were done. You get all the cows through this, and then you're done. But the work that happened in this spot was intense. A little too intense for me. Freaking gorgeous photo, though. This picture might not strike you, but it strikes me. I remember this pole. I remember sitting on it. When I was too little to really be a helper, that's where I would sit and watch. And I gotta say, I really like this out of focus areas. Not that's I mean that's not just the lens, right? That's the film, the lens, the developer, the technique are all coming together. This texture in here is a place where your lens will really show up. And a lot of 35mm lenses would struggle with these kind of textures. But this one looks good. So we fill up the farm trucks, tractors. I don't use it anymore. As you can see, it's seen better days. But I like climbing up on these things so you can put your feet right there and there. Then you can get up high. Easier to use this or even go up higher and you can open the thing up and add more fuel. Gas and diesel. Oh look, I got a little cow. I like all the tones. I like what's sharp and not sharp. Try to face-on shot of it too. Still remember what it's like to use this thing, what it feels like. And I haven't used it in a long time. Oh, this is the last photo. We've made it to the end of the roll. That's my house where I grew up. Flower bed my parents put in. I mean, my dad built the house. This was their bedroom, my parents' bedroom. It's kind of what I wanted, right? That even got down a little bit lower for this shot, a little bit of a kid's perspective. But yeah, these shadow tones, somehow that like communicates to me that this is double X. I also like that we get the glow right here at their window. One thing I don't like is getting a little bit of a bright edge across here, which is actually probably the shadow created from the thing that's holding my negative. It's bugging me. Didn't really notice it on other pictures. Okay, that's my roll. I think I really like this combination. I was definitely worried that maybe the grain would be too much, or whenever you push, you worry about this losing too much shadow detail, or highlights exploding, or this being too contrasty. I didn't really get it. I'm not. None of those things are popping out to me. And again, it's like, I think I shoot this film, and I use this camera on this lens partly to get away from the digital look. And I think this is doing it nicely. Now, I also shot, I also took my SL2S and I carried it side by side, so I actually have quite a few shots that are going to be pretty similar to these. Now, I had a 25mm lens instead of 35. So, but yeah, I wanted to start with my film shots. All right, there's my recipe again. Take care.